Introducing the DRF Cash Grab app, the super easy, free-to-play sports predictor game from a name you know and trust, the Daily Racing Form. Use your sports knowledge to predict the winners, and you could score thousands of dollars in cash prizes. Pro football, college football, pro basketball, college basketball, hockey, soccer, boxing, baseball, and more. Compete against others for a spot on the monthly leaderboard. Download the DRF Cash Grab app and play today.
Hi everybody, Dan Illman here, taking a look at race number 9 at Laurel Park on Jim McKay Maryland Million Saturday. This, the $125,000 Maryland Million Turf at 1 1/8 miles. Let's take a look at this field, and like many races on the Jim McKay Maryland Million Saturday program, it's a full field, it's a competitive field, it's a good betting race. 13 in the body of the race, 14 through 16 are also eligibles. Let's head over to the Timeform US Pace Projector because I do believe the pace is going to be key in this race. And I do concur with Timeform US that the 11 Wicked Prankster is going to make the running, wheeling back on short notice off a gate-to-wire victory going 1 mile. And I do agree with Timeform US that So Street's going to be close to the pace as well. These two horses have distance questions to address. I'm not sure if they're at their best going 1 1/8 miles, but they catch a field full of stalkers and closers that just don't have a lot of early speed. Maybe they can back down the fractions and sprint on home. That would certainly help their chances. The number 1 Street Copper is one of those closers I alluded to. He was 3rd in this race last year, the one and only time he ran 1 1/8 miles on the turf, and I think he's coming into this race in comparable form as last year. Last year he entered the Maryland Million Turf, a 5th place finish in a salty allowance race. This year he finished 4th in a pretty decent optional claimer at Pimlico. Now, I only thought he ran okay in that spot. He's the kind of horse that obviously needs a little bit of pace and race luck, and I thought he got both in that race. The pace was quick. He worked out an inside-out closer's trip, got a split at the 3/16 pole, had a look at it, and just flattened out a bit late. The race has come back fairly live. The runner-up came back to win with a 93 Beyer speed figure, although it's worth noting that race was an off-turf, non-winners of 2 other than. I think getting back to 1 1/8 miles is going to help Street Copper, and I think he's racing himself slowly back into shape. This is going to be his 5th start of 2022. I'm expecting one of his better efforts. The number 2 is Johng, a horse that is a true closer who ran great in this race last year. He came from way out of it, and he only lost by a nose. He got a really nice ride from Forrest Boyce that day. He's run 5 times since, however, and he hasn't hit the board in any one of those races. And last time out at Pimlico, you would think the setup was there for him. They went very fast, 22 and change for the opening quarter. He sat near the back of the pack, and he could only pass some tired horses in the stretch. I wonder if Johng at this point of his career is coming into the race as good as he did when he ran so well in 2021. I'm questioning his form, and he has to get the right setup because he has no early speed. And talk about no early speed, the 3 Mr. D'Angelo, who won this race in 2019, has no early speed. He came from left field to win the Maryland Million Turf that year, and he comes from left field when he does win. I was disappointed in his most recent race. It was an okay second-level allowance at Pimlico, but again, the pace was there, and he just didn't pick up his feet. He was a big price. Maybe he was in a little bit steep from a class perspective, and he did win 3 starts back, going 11 furlongs with an 80 Beyer. But he's a horse, I think, as he's gotten older, has gotten a little bit more temperamental. Give him some, when he feels right, he's going to come with a run, and when he doesn't, maybe he won't. But at the end of the day, Mr. D'Angelo, has the back races to contend in a field like this. He's going to be a good price. If you want to use a horse like this on the bottom of single race exotics, I wouldn't blame you hoping he'd get a piece. The 4 So Street should be close to the pace as he goes 3rd off the layoff for Michael Matz. What's interesting to me is that when Jamie Ness had this horse earlier in his career, they were loath to stretch him out to any sort of route distance. They never even ran him past 6 furlongs. Matt's got him, immediately ran him 1 1/16 miles off the layoff. He ran great behind Cannon's Roar, who's also in this field. He showed speed off that long layoff, and he just got tired at the end. And he ran just fine, I thought, last time out going 1 mile. I know he tired in the stretch to finish 9th, but that was a very good field of horse he was in against. Street Copper was one of them. So Street, to me, has to prove that he can navigate the 1 1/8 miles, however. I'm not sure he's as fast as Wicked Prankster. I think he'll be on a chase. He does have back class, and I respect him rounding into form 3rd off the layoff. Distance does worry me a lot. Nicky Bear, the number 5, won 2 starts back, but that was a condition. Now there's a 2-life claiming race at Colonial, and he's raced since, and it wasn't very good. It was at Pimlico in a restricted allowance race. He didn't break well, and if you want to make that excuse, that's fine. But since Nicky Bear's one of those closers, you would think that being far back is where he usually is in the early part of his races. He didn't do any running after that, and he's just going to have to improve as he steps up in class. He's 30-1 on the morning line. The number 6 is Room Jar, a horse that's trying turf for the first time in his career, and he goes out for a very capable young horseman in Jesse Cruz. But looking at this pedigree, I just don't see enough turf that makes me think he's going to step up and run a career best race against some salty turf horses first time on the grass. Room Jar's by Holy Boss, 0 for 19 with first time turf runners. Still too early to tell whether he's going to be a turf stallion or not, but I don't see a lot of turf in this female family. What I do like is the fact that he does have tactical speed and can sit close to the pace, but he's also 1 for 13 lifetime, facing some very strong multi-winners. I'll take a wait-and-see approach on Room Jar. Midnight Hauler, the 7, though, is a very strong contender. Let's watch his last start, the Alphabet Soup Handicap at Parks, going 1 mile and a 16th. And he got wired this day by Byland and Sea, who's in raging form. That horse is on the cusp of being a grade 3 level turf horse, and he would come back out of winning the Alphabet Soup to take a stakes race on dirt with a 92 Beyer speed figure. Midnight Hauler saved ground in mid-pack, but just gave up too much of a tactical advantage to Byland and Sea. He was running hard at the end, as you saw, to finish second. He won a stakes race at Penn National 2 starts back, and I think he has a little bit more tactical speed than what he's shown on paper. I don't believe he's a true closer like the Mr. D'Angelo or John G's of the world. I think if this pace is slow, Midnight Hauler can adapt, and he has not been off the board since he switched to turf, and it's sort of provided a little bit of a career renaissance for a horse that's always been solid. Speaking of solid, Cannon's Roar is absolutely hickory. It's hard to believe he hasn't won a race in over 2 years, but he's run well in many of them, including a 4th in the Maryland Million Turf last year. I don't think his failure to win races is a character flaw. I don't think he has hang in him. I think he's found some really tough spots, and I think there are times where he's had some tough trips. And I think the last race was a fairly tough trip. It was an allowance race, and he was forced out about 4 wide going into the first turn. He chased outside and without cover and was still in with a look turning into the stretch, and he just couldn't finish with those horses. It was a good field. You got an open stakes winner in there in English Tavern. You've got a grade 1 winner in Decorated Invader. It was a good group. It was a good prep for this performance. He's won at 1 mile and an 1/8. I know he doesn't win often, but Cannon's Roar, this might be his best chance at glory in a long time, because he can get himself into the race. He has the tactical speed to work out a trip under Sheldon Russell, and he should be in with a big look when the field turns into the stretch. The 9 is Benny Havens, and Benny Havens is a horse that came from way out of it last time out at Pimlico, but I wonder if that was simply a case because he didn't break very well. It was a really good performance for Benny Havens, considering he stumbled at the start. Yes, he got some pace to run at, but he also finished ahead of 2 next out winners. The runner-up's a solid horse that came back to run 3rd with an 80 Beyer and a first-level allowance, and Benny Havens showed that when he doesn't stumble out of the gate, he can get close to the pace. That's a key handicapping angle in this race. The one concern is Benny Havens' lifetime record. He's 1 for 26. He hasn't won since 2019. He's got some work to do, but I think he can at least get close to the pace, and at a price, he might give you a bit of a thrill. Up against it is the number 10, and up against it is going dirt to turf. He scored for Damon de Lodovico last time out. That was a starter optional race on the dirt. He won by 2 that day. I think he's a slightly better horse on the dirt. The last time he ran on turf was 3 starts back. He got up close to a moderate pace. He tired at the end. The 5th place horse has gotten good since then. He's hit the board in 3 starts, including 1 in a grade 3 race, 87 Beyer in his most recent start, winning a 2 other than turf sprint. Horse with tactical speed, has some questions to answer whether turf is really going to be his best game. Wicked Prankster is the key to this race. Let's watch his most recent performance. This is only 6 days ago. A first-level allowance. He went to the lead, and he went legitimately fast over a wet turf course. And Richard Monterey opened up at just the right time in upper stretch, and the wire comes in the nick of time for Wicked Prankster. Now he's got to do it going 1 mile and an 1/8. He's run well going 1 mile and an 1/8 in the past, but he hasn't gotten to the winner's circle there yet. I like that they're wheeling him back quick. I like that he's the controlling speed in this race. And these are low-profile connections that often don't take a ton of money at the windows. Maybe Wicked Prankster sort of falls through the cracks from a wagering standpoint. Nick Papagiorgio finished 6th last time out. I thought he ran okay that day. At Pimlico, he kind of hopped a little bit coming out of the gate. And for the first quarter mile, it was sort of a stop-go trip. They wanted to get the pocket. They couldn't get it. They got shuffled back. He was in and among. And then he finished evenly. He's a really honest horse who has to deal with a very, very tough outside post position, as does the 13 Crabs and Beer, who seems to be just as good on dirt as he is on turf. He won on dirt last time out over the mud. Here's his race on turf 2 starts back at Delaware, a race where you could argue he might have been a little bit pace compromised. He ended up running on for second with a 76 Beyer speed figure, but it'll be interesting to see what kind of trip he can pull from this far outside post as he navigates 1.1 miles for the first time in his career. This is a wide open race. I respect a lot of these horses in this field. I'm going to go with Street Copper, the number 1. I think he ran well in this race last year, and I think one of the reasons why he ran well was the distance. I really think 1.1 miles is good for him, and if he gets a fair pace, I think he's going to come with a kick. I picked Cannon's Roar 4th. I won't be surprised at all if he's going to win. I want to keep an eye on Wicked Prankster, the 11, because if he gets loose, maybe he can take this field gate to wire at a price. 111.78 for me. It's the Maryland Million Turf. It's a great day of racing at Laurel Park on Saturday. Good luck.